Hello, welcome to the Trail Chasers podcast. I am super excited to find out all about your trail running journey and, of course, about all the awesome races that you're organizing. So, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Let's kick it off. How did you get into trail running?
Hi, Dean. First of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. We're excited to talk about peak sports and trail running. How did I get into the sport? Growing up, I've done a lot of outdoor activities. When I moved to the UAE, I started the trail running 10 years ago. Just a year ago, I quit my full time job and I started working on peak sports full time, organizing races.
What prompted that move?
So we've been doing races since 2022, since I also had
Okay.
a full-time job as well. And
Yeah.
we felt that there was a big gap in the trail races that are organized here in the UAE itself. And we felt that there is a huge potential to do that.
Over the last 10 years, how's the trail running space developed in the UAE?
It has developed massively since I started trail running here. We were a very small group of people back then. And nowadays, you would get more than 400, 500 runners signed up for a trail race. It has developed. It is not a niche sport anymore.
And how's the transition been from being a normal trail runner to an event organizer?
A huge transition, I would say. You give up a
Yeah.
lot to organize races. When you're a trail runner, you are more focused on your training, on your performance, getting into your numbers and exploring new places, signing up for races. Nowadays, I put the races in the calendar and I don't think about
Yeah.
racing myself. Yeah, it is a huge transition, but it is also very rewarding when we get the
Mm.
feedback and when we see people achieving their goals and their dreams, and everybody comes to a race for a reason. And when we see that at the finish line, it's a huge reward.
Looking back over the last 10 years, have there been any memorable races or experiences that you've had?
Of course, I have raced a few myself, whether in the UAE or outside. There
Mm.
is one of my favorite was in Bhutan in 2000. It was a staged race, 200 kilometers with around 10,000 meters
So,
of elevation. And that has kept a lot of memories because it's over a span of 1 week. And then you get to meet a lot of people from all over the world. And it's a new place, a new environment, which is different to the UAE with altitude. So you have to test so many things and experience a lot of new things that happen on a race. And I think it was one of my favorite.
that sounds amazing. And what is the terrain like in terms of the races and the running? Because when I think of it, I think of basically deserts. So tell me about the terrain
Yeah.
and the mountains that you can run on.
Yeah, as I said before, one of the reasons we started those races is because there aren't many properly organized trail races here. And two, because of the terrain, we wanted to show what the
Mm.
UAE and this region has in terms of terrain. Many runners sign up to our races thinking that it's going to be just a gravel road, but we have very sharp and technical and steep mountains that can really put you to test. For
So,
example, the upcoming race that we have comes with around 6,500 meters of elevation gain and loss. It is technical, it is steep, it is hard. And plus, the weather
mm.
also plays a big role. During the day, it can get a bit hot. And then in the morning and evening hours, it gets very cool and windy. So that also is something to consider.
Speaking of the weather there, are you limited in terms of doing your races in winter?
Yeah, the racing season here is very short. It goes from October until April, and that is the maximum I would say in terms of long distance trail running, because we need to
Yeah.
think safety and all of that when we're putting a race in the calendar. We can go ahead with shorter distances, but we've been focusing on a specific type of races.
What are the unique features of the races? Do they each have their own unique features, or is there something that has a sort of unifying thread across all of them?
Each one has a different feature, and we try to have various races on various places and terrains. So we've got,
Mm.
for example, some desert races in the evening that we do with a headlight on during the month of Ramadan here in UAE. And we've got also the goat race coming up, which is one of the toughest
Mm.
races, I would say, and biggest trail races in the UAE and the region, which the elevation goes up till 6,500 meters. We have various distances. We have from 15 to 100 kilometer. And we have as well other places where we organize races like Shauka, which comes with lower elevation. It's a nice place to explore and train, and it's open for beginners, where we also do a 5K run and a 10K and a 15K. So we try to be inclusive as well in our races, and runners or participants can basically build up with our races.
Speaking of that sort of inclusivity, how do you balance that, especially between the short distances, the long distances, and also getting elites and then your average trail runners? How do you ensure that balance?
The moment our races are online, we've got a lot of signups, to be honest. This is one.
Mm.
And two, we are part of a big trail running community here, Trail Runners DXB and the Desert Trail Runners, who run in the mountains and the desert every weekend. So we arrange group runs every weekend to show people the terrain. And we work very closely with coaches as well. We also do a lot of
Mm.
workshops, we do training plans as well. So we try to make it a bit more inclusive, I would say, not only trail running itself and making a race and purchasing a ticket. It's more than the running journey, it's more than the miles.
Mm.
We literally
Yeah.
transformed a lot of beginners into trail runners that now sign up for
Yeah.
UTMB races.
Amazing. Do you choose to focus on different races for different types of people, or do you have, say, like at an event like the GOAT, where you have the kind of full spectrum of from beginners all the way to your kind of elites?
Yeah, we do have from beginners all the way to elites on every single race.
Mm.
Every single
Sure.
race is open for any category or any type of runner, even if they're a beginner. For example, a 15-kilometer run on the goat race, we also allowed a very open cutoff time for people to come and hike it and just enjoy the
Sure.
mountains. The terrain is not a beginner's type of terrain, but it can be hiked. And we also arrange for all the aid stations and the marshals and all the safety requirements so people would come and enjoy.
You did mention the weather. What are the other challenges that you face in organizing these events?
There are some challenges because the mountains are mostly remote areas. You find a few farms here and there, but they are not inhabited. The biggest challenge is basically to drop aid stations. So sometimes we work
Mm.
very closely with the government to arrange for those stations to be dropped. We were speaking about sometimes 4 kilometers with 700, 800 meters of elevation to set an aid
Wow.
station with water for runners
Wow.
to hydrate. On the goat race, we have five of them. And we have many places where our lead marshals will be camping, making sure that they guide the runners through the night. There are a lot of challenges that we need to consider,
Mm.
especially on a distance and a race like this. We're speaking about 32
Mm.
hours cut-off time. That's a long day.
And that's great to hear that the government have been so supportive about the sport.
Trail running hasn't been the sport, I would say, before, but right now it is really attracting a lot of people. It is growing massively in this region. And I would say it's also part of sports tourism because our routes
Mm.
showcase, for example, Jebel Jais and all the touristic attractions on the mountain itself. There's a zip line,
Yeah.
there's a sledder, there's mountain bike trails. There are so many other stuff that people get to see while they're running. It's beautiful, it's
Mm.
very scenic, and at the same time, it is one of the most rugged and technical terrains.
Do your races cover different terrains, or do you have them in similar places?
We do cover different terrains. The mountains here are not, I would say, lush and green. It's rocky mountains. It's sharp,
Yeah.
but then the steepness and the technicality would differ from an area to another. We try also to do races in the desert as well, but this is mainly the type of terrain that is here.
What other races do you run?
So we have 5 races so far in the calendar. We've done in November, last one standing race, with the idea was taken from the backyard ultra or the last man
Mm.
standing, but we did a few adjustments and we made it over 12 hours instead of an open time.
Mm.
And it wasn't 1 hour on the hour. It was basically the person with the most kilometers is the winner. So it was more
Yeah.
challenging because they had to clock in as much kilometers within the period of 12 hours. And when we put the idea in, we didn't get too many signups. We had maybe 230, 250 people signed up, which is not a usual number for our races, but it was a new idea. After the race was finished, everybody has been asking for another version of that race.
Mm.
We have a race called Shauka, which is more open for the community because we have
Mm.
5K, 10K, 15, and 35.
Amazing.
And also, we have a category for children. They also come and run in our races. Yeah. And goat race coming up as well. We do have a desert race in March. And then we have a vertical race in April. We are also looking at including some new ideas and new other races. We are very specific with our races. We like to bring new
Mm.
ideas and different
Yeah.
terrains, make it interesting.
What was your first race that you started?
We started with Shauka in 2022, and the idea was to just organize a small race and see how it goes. And we started with a 10 and
Mm.
a 21 kilometers back then. And I think we had around 200 people signed up in a month. That was like a very quick decision
Good.
to make a race. And we made 4 editions of Shauka. The fourth was actually just the past month in November. After Shauka, we wanted to introduce a new terrain, a more interesting distance. And then we organized GOAT 1, which was
Mm.
30 and 50K in Jebel Jais. The 50K had around 3,800 meters of elevation, which made it the hardest 50K in the region. It attracted a lot of runners from the UAE, from the GCC region, and abroad. And this is how we
Mm.
started growing from there, basically.
That's amazing. Speaking of that local community, is it mainly locals that are doing the races? And what does this mean having these races for the local community? And then obviously talking about as well bringing in the tourists. Have you seen an increase of people coming in to do it?
The UAE or Dubai is home for so many nationalities as well. But speaking about the local community, the message behind Peak Sports was always to showcase the beauty of the mountains in the UAE. Because we always
Mm.
used to hear, as I travel abroad and participate in races, people used to tell me, "Where do you train? Do you even have races in the
Mm.
UAE? Do you even have mountains in the UAE?" And that was also one of the key reasons that we wanted to showcase our backyard. Come and
Mm.
see what we have here. The mountains are beautiful. It can really put you to test. It's very technical. And yeah, we started attracting also a lot of Emiratis and a lot of local people who wanted to step out of road running and come and test the trail races. And it's also a word of mouth. Being in the community, that was also something that helped us as well, because I've been 10 years trail running, and I know so many people connected to so many trail and road running groups. And then if you get the trust of the people and they see the quality of the races that you're putting in, people would want to come and have a share of that. This is how the local and regional runners started being attracted more to our races.
Talking about the regular runs and the big community, is it based in a certain area or is it quite spread out across the UAE?
It is spread out. So the UAE is basically 7 Emirates.
Yeah.
Example, drive between Dubai and Ras Al Khaimah, where Jebel Jais is for the goat, is 2 hours drive approximately. There's also Fujairah, where we are also exploring some trails, which is again 1 hour 30, 1 hour 40. There's also Hatta, which is where we did the last one standing, which is also part of Dubai, is also 1 hour 30 from Dubai. Shauka is a 1 hour drive from Dubai. There are desert races in Dubai and also in Abu Dhabi, where it's around sometimes up to 3 hours drive. So they are spread
Mm.
out, but we also consider a full package normally. We look at the hotels in the area, how we can work
Mm.
together to accommodate runners, make that area vibrant during the race. We work very closely with the local people in every area, with the farmers. They get so excited when they see a big race
Sure,
coming.
yeah. That's so cool. And how have your races evolved since the beginning, and particularly the goat race? How has that kind of evolved from last year to, well, so was it this year and next year? Was it last year, this year, and next year?
2024 was the first goat race, and next year, 2025, is the second one. I would say it has evolved because we started with 30 and 50 kilometers, and now we've included 15, 30, 50, 70, and 100-kilometer distance. It's a lot of work. There's a lot happening
Yeah.
behind the scenes. Peak Sports team is a small team, but the hands and the people working behind the scenes are the large team. It takes
Mhm.
a village, I would say, sometimes to put a
Yeah.
race together.
And for the goat race, what makes that so unique, and what drew you to that kind of area for the race?
So Jebel Jais is the highest point of the UAE.
Okay.
Yeah, it's around 1,000. So the elevation is around 1,900 meters, and this is the highest point where the route of the race passes through. And it crosses borders with Oman. It's the mountains, which is very well known in the region. It comes with beautiful views, and it's also very challenging. So yeah, this was a challenge because it
Mhm.
is one of the highest points. It comes with many remote places. It is not inhabited, so there are few farms there, few people operate them. So it makes it more challenging for us, but we managed to pull the first edition, and now we're getting through the second one.
With that 100K race, how the entry looking for that, and are people excited for that?
Since we did goat, the first goat in January this year, many people have been asking for goat too. The signups are moving faster than the first edition, I would say, and it's attracting a lot of
Amazing.
people from abroad. We have so many runners joining us from South Africa and also from Europe, Russia, Portugal, so many other places. It is growing, and goat has made its name, I would say.
How are you attracting people from outside the UAE?
So it is basically marketing. Our team is working behind the scenes on spreading the word, on reaching out to runners. Our social pages as well are very active. And again, it's a word of mouth. I would say
Yeah.
runners follow each other at some point. So yeah, marketing the race, and we work very closely on the quality. And I think this is
Mm.
our main core.
Have you put quite an emphasis on bringing out elites from different countries?
So on the 100-kilometer distance, we have collaborated with the 100 World Championship, and we are now an alliance race. This is one of the key things that I would say that changed from GOAT 1 to GOAT 2. Being under the 100 World Championship has affected our signups when it comes to elite runners,
Mm.
and as well, the team is working behind the scene on all the
Mm.
marketing details.
Tell me more about the 100 championship.
Basically, they have a few major races around the world and many alliance races. And we are one of those alliance races, and the distance has to be either 100K, 100 miler to 100 miler. Goat race ticks the box for the 100K distance. This is the first race in the region that goes under the 100 World Championship. Runners who participate on the 100 get a specific number of points based on their performance. There are like a similar index that they get based on their results. Then they are qualified to compete in other championship races that they organize.
Sure, that's amazing. That's incredible.
Thank you. Thank you.
And well done on that. That's such a incredible thing to have, because obviously it will highlight and increase the profile. And when it comes to the goat race, what is the race village, the race environment? What are the main points there for you?
Yeah, I would say from the first edition, we are trying to evolve the race village because on trail
Mm.
races, when you are in areas which are not developed, you need to
Mm.
bring everything there. The challenge for us on the first edition was to have an active race village the whole time because runners come and go in different timings. And it was a 16-hour race. People wouldn't stay for too long and hang around. That was our challenge in the first edition. We are working on improving that on the second one to have a better race venue where people can hang around, sit for a bit, looking
Mm.
at building more Arabic style tents that showcase the culture.
Mm.
Yeah, and having more, hopefully, restaurants and make it
Mm.
more lively for people to stay and wait for the runners coming in. That was mainly the
Yeah.
challenge in Goat One and in all mountain races that we do here because the
Mm.
areas are not so developed. Hopefully, I think the government has a bigger plan for this and it will happen at some point.
That's going to be incredible. And you did mention a little bit about the aid stations, but what else are you doing to ensure that the races run smoothly and that people support it throughout the race?
So we, for example, on the 100-kilometer distance, we have around 15 aid stations in place, medics, of course, and our
Mhm.
marshals are all trained for wilderness and outdoors. We work with the civil defense to train our marshals theoretically and practically on any scenarios
Sure.
that might happen on the trail. And we have lead marshals who have more experience, of course, and we have medics everywhere. Like we have
Mm.
foot medics as well, that they are hikers and they are aware of the environment here. So they have their medic bag on and they hike the
Mm.
trails and they can move from a place to another. And of course, we
Mm.
always work on a risk assessment plan in case anything happens
Yeah.
where we can access, where we need the helicopter. We put all of that into practice before the race. So from our side, we do everything that is required in terms of safety. At the end of the day, we just fingers crossed that everything goes smooth as a race organizer myself. But
Yeah.
anybody who, knowing even myself, when I used to participate in any mountain race, you need to know the risk factors as well and be
Mm.
also responsible and know when to stop and where to stop in case. This is very important. We do also briefings before the race. So we don't only work
Mm.
on our team and our marshals, we also work with the runners themselves. We feed them with a lot of information and we do a presentation and a briefing, very detailed, that basically
Mm.
elaborates all the details and the risk factors. And our numbers are always there. We're always reachable to anybody.
Do you find that the locals have the advantage of knowing the terrain?
Not really, because I would say we're all locals here. Because I
Yeah.
mean, we all have access to the mountains and we all train there.
Do you choose to focus on different races for like different types of people, or do you have, say, like at an event like the goat, will you have the kind of full spectrum of from beginners all the way to your elites?
Locals who live, let's say, in those areas like Shauka or Ras Al Khaimah, of course, they
Mm.
have more advantage, but they don't really participate in races. Sometimes we
Mm.
send them an invitation to come and join us. Because it's their backyard, this is their terrain and their life. They just go up and down those mountains every day. They participate in the race. Yes, they do have the advantage over others for sure. But
Mm.
the mountains are for everyone, and we always have the luxury to go there and train, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And during the race weekend or week, what is your biggest stress or biggest challenge?
I always wait for each and everyone to cross the finish line. That is the biggest
Mm.
challenge. As the race starts, normally things go smoothly, but we are always prepared for any scenario. Thank goodness nothing happened on our past races, and hopefully nothing will happen on the future ones. But we are always prepared for any scenario, and I think that's the biggest challenge.
Mm.
It also brings you some anxiety, but it is what it is. You have to deal
Yeah.
with the situation as it comes. For example, on Shauka, this is a little story. One of the runners
Mm.
did not expect it to rain and decided just to move the
Mm.
bib number, put it in their pocket, and walk to the parking. We had a detection on our system that the runner has crossed one certain area and did not come back from that area. We were very worried because he was not picking up the phone. So we couldn't reach out to him to know where he is. He didn't fill in his emergency contact details. And at the same time, we didn't get a detection of the runner. So we had to send 3 teams over to the same area looking after him to check. After involving the police, we had to look through all the pictures of the runners that the photographers took. And we managed to find him in a different place walking towards the parking on different timings. That's how we got all the information and we managed to reach out to him. We knew that he's safe. But this took a period of 7 hours after the race.
Wow. Yeah.
During the race and while the runners were coming in, all until like midnight. So those are challenges, of course. Always consider that something might happen and we're always prepared for it. But yeah, every race comes with its challenges.
For the 100K, do you have an idea of what time the winner will do it in?
We're expecting around 15 to 16 hours.
And the cutoff for that race?
Hours.
And in terms of the temperatures, what is the day? What does the night look like? Is there quite a big jump?
It is. This is a big challenge here because in the early morning hours, the temperature drops in Jebel Jais. Now I think it's around 12 degrees. It can go
Sure.
lower as well. It can go much lower. And during the day, when the sun comes up, it is quite hot because it's very low.
Mm.
And then when the sun goes down, there's wind on the higher areas where you need a waterproof or like a wind jacket
Mm.
or another layer. Towards the evening, it gets very cold. And then again, it's a cycle. When the sun comes up again, it gets hot. So yeah, it is a big jump. During the day, it may come
Sure.
come up to between 26 to 28, which is a cool temperature for us when it comes to summer months. But still, when you're
Yeah.
running for a long time, it can get to you. So runners are always
Sure.
prepared for both. And we are
Yeah.
always
Yeah. So
prepared as well to accommodate both. When the weather changes on stations, we have some hot food and soup. On other stations during the day, we
mm,
have iced water. This is something to factor in while
yeah.
preparing.
Does it change like quite a bit? Could you be caught unaware, or is it pretty consistent that it's cold at night, hot during the day?
If it doesn't rain, yeah, because when it rains here, it is very dangerous. And this is what we're hoping
Mm.
for before the race, that there wouldn't come any rain because the wadis would flush literally. And
Wow.
this is again another challenge. For example, we wait until 1 week before the race, and then we have to clear the trails from all the small rocks. So we fix all the trail before the race. And because when it rains,
Sure.
it gets very dangerous, especially on the steep downhills with small
Mm.
rocks. There are so many things and details to this race, and it's very interesting. The more you ask me questions, the more I remember like the details to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally it is known that in the morning and the evening it gets too cool, but during the day as well, if in shaded areas it can be windy and the wind is sharp.
What is the most kind of rewarding thing for you about doing these races in general, but also during the weekend?
I don't have the answer to this question yet. I'm still exploring that. Honestly, sometimes as a race organizer, I also go through the highs and lows, to be very honest. Once the race is done, it is very rewarding to see the feedback, to look at the whole picture of what you have achieved, what you have done, not as me as a race organizer, but also as a team being able to pull this event. However, leading up to the event comes with a lot of challenges, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of back and forth, a lot of questions whether this works or not, whether it's safe or not, a lot of anxiety as well on what might happen. So there's a lot of highs and lows. There's a lot of days when I'm like, am I doing the right thing? And there are days when I'm like, yes, this is what I want to do and I'm gonna keep going. I think it's a journey, and that's what makes it the journey.
Do you have any memorable moments from the races you've done?
Memorable, yes, but how
Mhm.
exactly memorable?
It's quite an important topic at the moment in terms of sustainability and the environment and adding kind of runners to the mountains and things like that. So, how important is that for you, and what kind of practices are you putting in place there?
Yeah, it is such an important topic, and we try as much to adhere to it. For example, on stations, we don't give plastic bottles, which sometimes it's
Mhm.
much easier for us, especially to carry in remote areas than carrying big bottles of water. But we are trying to cut on plastic bottles. Hopefully, one day our trophies will also become wooden trophies instead of other material. It
Sure.
is challenging for us in terms of cost because there are many materials that are not done locally. We have to bring them, and the cost is massive when you put quantities in. But we are trying to put many practices. Also, littering is prohibited. We ourselves, as Peak Sports, organize cleaning workshops in the mountains. We go in groups, like 20, 30 groups, and do a cleanup of all the residues that are left in the mountains from other people and hikers. We try to spread the word about sustainability and less plastic and more environmental friendly material. So we are trying our best. I wouldn't say that we have done everything so far, but we are trying the most we can to adhere to that.
And you did mention a little bit about bringing things in. What is the sort of availability like in the UAE in terms of trail running, gear, nutrition, and brands and things like that?
It is getting better right now than before.
Mm,
So back in the years, it used to be a challenge for me myself to purchase my own gear. I used to fly to Lebanon sometimes to get a Hoka shoes,
mm,
or order from anywhere else in the world or somewhere where I travel. But right now, the availability of gear is much better than before. Salomon store has opened again. Socony are back. Hoka are now available, and Dynafit. I'm not giving any brand a
yeah,
exclusivity here.
a shout out.
You can find now running gear much more than before.
Amazing. In terms of nutrition,
Nutrition as well. Nutrition is much better than trail running gear because there are also many other sports like cycling, road
mm,
running, many
yeah.
other sports that also hydrate more or less on the same nutrition. So you would find nutrition in a better availability than trail running gear specifically.
In terms of sponsors for the race, do you have sponsors, mainly sports brands? How's that evolving?
We do have sponsors for sure. Some of
Mm,
them have been with us for years and since we started. Sports brands, we had Hoka as a sponsor for the past few years. For
mm,
Goat Race, we are in the process of finalizing our sponsors. So yeah, I will keep that until things are finalized. But yes, we
amazing.
do have sponsors. Sometimes it's challenging as well, especially when it comes to sports sponsors. But with the races that we have done now this year in 2024, we have set the standard. And the good thing is that sponsors now are reaching out to us.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And in terms of professional trail runners, are you seeing that emerging in the UAE yet?
It is, yes, it is. Yeah,
Mm,
there I see a huge potential, honestly, in runners
mm.
here, and if they are looked after, they can really reach some international races and international podiums.
Where do you see it in the next few years? What are the things that you're already thinking of adding to the race or improving for the race? And obviously also for peak sports as well. What are the kind of things that you're looking at and wanting to work on?
The vision is huge, I would say. Since we are now an alliance race under the 100 World Championship, there's also some discussions for a 100 miler race in the UAE, which
Mm,
might happen maybe 2026. That is also in the books. This is a whole different level of organization, though, especially if
yeah.
we consider Jebel Jais itself. But yeah, we are growing, we are expanding, we are looking at adding more races to the calendar, but we also listen to the community. We get a lot of requests like, why not a desert race, for example, with this distance? And then we look at all the factors and then we put it in the calendar. Speak Sports is growing. We are looking at growing the team as well, including more partners or investors. If we keep going at this rate, I would say it is going in the right direction. It is growing. It comes with
Mm.
so many challenges, though, but this is part of anything. At the end of the day, we are a startup. We have to put the work to make it happen, and we are moving in that direction.
Have you settled on what your calendar looks like for the year?
Yes, so it starts with Goat Race in January 2025. And then we've got a race in March in the desert, a night race during the month of Ramadan, March
Yeah.
14th. And then we have a vertical race in April, which is a new idea as well, first in the UAE. We are also looking at making it a sky running race, although it's a small
Oh,
distance.
wow.
We're also
Yeah.
working on that. After April, we haven't decided yet if we're going to make a desert race with a long distance during the month of April or not. This is still to be determined. And then we hibernate for the summer work for the next season, which is going to be again the last one standing with 12 hours. But we may add maybe a different version of that as well, maybe a 24 hours.
Mm.
Let's see. And we end the year with Shauka. And in between, we
Sure.
get a lot of other workshops and races that we collab with
Mm.
many other races. We do a lot of collaborations. This is the beauty of trail running, that our message has always been beyond running, beyond the miles. We
Mm.
always work with the regional races to grow the sport, to direct it, to take it in the right direction. And if we keep working on quality, I think in the next few years, Peak Sports is going to be the leading name in trail running, not only in the UAE, maybe in the region.
In terms of coverage and how people can follow or find out information now, but also like during race weekend, What kind of systems do you have in place for that?
We have our own hardware, and this is how we track the runners throughout the checkpoints that are on the race. We go live during the race, and there is live tracking where you get all the information from one checkpoint to another. However, this time, since we are part of the 100 World Championship, the 100-kilometer runners would be tracked through a GPS device, and we can see them all over the route. And we are working as well on live tracking screens as well. Hopefully, that will come into practice. It's all in the pipeline, so hopefully we'll manage to do that. But yeah, race result, we share normally the link with people to track the runners on the day. And our website is Peak Sports. From there, it takes you to the registration link and where you find all the information. Our Instagram page is very active. We're very responsive. And on Instagram, you have access to the races WhatsApp group where we share information and are responsive to anyone who reaches out to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
luck with the prep for the race. And yeah, excited to follow along.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you for having me. And it's a pleasure talking to you.
Cool. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.